So, topic for tonight's discussion is Bhutan's press freedom ranking by RSF, Reporters Without Borders. Colin, what's your view? Where do we start from? Shall we start from the director of Department of Media, Creative Industry and Intellectual Property? Let's start from the government. No.
We expected this to improve. It didn't improve. We went through everything, and actually speaking, if Tenzin is here, thank you. I went through your editorial today, and that was a balancing perspective.
Tenzin is editor-in-chief of Business Bhutan, right?
Yes. So he actually did a balanced story. I read your editorial, your report also, Langsung. A reasonable perspective. But our view is, last time when Kuensel asked for my view, we said that was a very prompt reaction. We do not acknowledge this. We do not acknowledge this. So therefore, making it very explicit, as I mentioned earlier, a report that is not validated, that is one-sided, and as it was put, I would like to believe Ugen would have done his homework properly. It doesn't represent the industry well, fully, and therefore, should we really acknowledge it? We should get concerned. I'm not concerned, and apprise my authorities that we shouldn't be concerned. And we will keep taking our steps forward. We believe that media is important. We believe it is important. And to the best of our ability, we continue to support it. But at the same time, if RSF, without adequately consulting reporters within the borders, then I don't think the story is complete. Thank you.
Plus, thank you. That's government's perspective on the press freedom ranking in Bhutan. Earlier, Honorable Lembo asked many pertinent questions, including whose story is it, whose narrative is it? Do you think somebody has planted this narrative against Bhutan?
Like Lembo mentioned, I have been going through the report many times now. And even I was referring so many reports published in print media, and I was doing some comparative study as well. But first thing we all need to know is, like earlier the Master of Ceremony mentioned, during my almost 2 decades career in BBS, I haven't received even once that survey questionnaire. So who is doing that? Is this parliamentarians? Is it some freelance practicing journalists? Or it's some political activists? So this we have to ask question. And also like when it comes to like freedom index, like in our corruption perception index, I sometimes get it's just a number. What more we need to look into is the status of Bhutan and the media in Bhutan. Not really what RSF produce and interpret. Thank you.
So, Honorable Member of Parliament is also equally doubtful about the report. Now we'll go to a hardcore investigative journalist, Tenzin Langsung.
I mean, like everything else in many things in life, this is also in the realm of grey matter, Yuvala. There's no absolutes of black and whites. So I think on one hand, if you look at if you take, I think, a step back and look at the big picture, Lupo already mentioned the years. Essentially, before democracy, from 2002 onwards, we were never favorites with the RSF. We always scored, I think, 157th rank in 2002, 3, 4, and in 2005 it dropped down to 161st. So we were in the bottom 20th rank of the world. What happened was once we moved towards democracy and opened up the media space, allowed private media, our ranking started improving rapidly to the point that we hit 74th in 2008. So I think there's the story in there. And from 2008 up to 2020, we were in the 80s and then sometimes 90s, not much jump up and down. Then what happened was that in 2020, there was a big improvement. We jumped up to 67th, which was the highest at the time. And then, and Limbo mentioned also that this is during the pandemic. Then our next best score was again right in the pandemic years of 2022, 33rd position. So my theory is that why our scores improved at that time is because I think the government was really not hand in glove, but really open to the media. They were like daily press conferences, and the media played a stellar role. The government also was really open in terms of sharing information. So I think our ranking probably improved because of that. And there were no access to information wasn't a problem because everybody was feeding us information. The big drop came next year in 2023 when we dropped from 33rd to the 98th position. Wow. And it's very important. The ranking for 2025 is for 2024. And in 2022, several things happened which really hit us. I think one was issue of access to information. What happened there was 3 foresters were compulsorily retired. A press release was issued by the then Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock that they have talked to the media. Though the real reason was insubordination, they were refusing to go on the transfer. So that was a mistake. Then they withdrew that press release, but it was too late, it went viral on social media. And they issued another one saying it's because of insubordination. It was the real cause. Then in the same year, the radar rules came up from the RCSC, which prevented civil servants from talking to the media and went up to the penalty of even imprisonment, court prosecution for what is said were national security issues. It was unclear. Then we had in addition to that, ACC also following up with reminders. So all of this happened in 2022. And then in 2023, we see the big drop happening. So it wasn't coincidental. There were specific reasons why this drop happened. And then because of the effects of what happened in 2022, it carried on in 2024 and there was another huge drop of 57 places and we reached 147. Along with this also, why the drop happened is because I think RSF, earlier Bhutan was safe because our security rankings were really good because reporters were not getting, as Nulu mentioned, killed or kidnapped like in other countries. So we got away because of that. What RSF started realizing is that economic indicators are terrible. So if you look at the big drop years, the biggest drops are always in the economic indicators. Huge drops because of the sustainability issue affecting all the media houses and especially the private media houses. So there are scientific reasons of why the drops have happened. And in fact, we asked RSF, the Bhutanese, we asked RSF, why did you drop Bhutan to 152 this year? And they gave 4 or 5 reasons, which are essentially economic, access to information and all of that. And then the solutions are also the similar ones. So they have given the problem and the solution, and it's up to us to take it up as a challenge and to bring about a better ranking next year.
Okay. Thank you. Question to Kuensel. Later on, I have a big question for you. Before that, the CEO of Kuensel.
I think Lamzang covered everything. And before that, Honorable Limbo already set the tone of the discussion. Is it a concern? It is a concern. But I didn't read the report like Limbo and Sonam did, because I thought it was like Trump administration's inclusion of Bhutan is in this red list country last time. So slowly we'll come back to yellow or then green. But I think, like Lamzang said, there were a lot of things happening in the last couple of years. And I was told by some friends that even the transformation exercise, which was, and we had this managed out and all these things happening in the last couple of years. So that also actually had an impact on, especially on the newsmakers in the civil service, because I was told that during some meetings, newspapers were brought to the table and then they were asked, why is this the headline of Business Bhutan or Bhutanese or Kuensel? So because of that, I think then the newsmakers, they were not really confident with sharing information with the media. So the access to information, it is a challenge. While we also appreciate the good tradition of the cabinet minister, cabinet minister meeting the press every month. This is, I think, very unique to Bhutan, and we really appreciate that. And the other one is, like Lamzam said, I don't have to repeat, but just to end my thing. It is also because of the economic indicator. Because if you are not sustainable, if you are not confident, I think our journalism will be affected. And we are already seeing that now in Bhutan. Kuensel is seen as the big paper. Even at Kuensel, we have to compromise a lot of things because the marketing managers, the marketing people are always after the editors. Can you stop doing this story because we are losing our clients? So when we are not making money, when we are not sustainable, then our journalism is impacted.
The question, please think about it. Could the quarrel between private newspapers and Kuensel have contributed to the drop in ranking? Because it exposed how much our media are dependent on the government or not dependent on government. That exposed the whole thing. Earlier, RSF may not have known about how much our newspapers are dependent on government, or how Kuensel is not dependent on government, etc. We'll come back to this. And before that, Kuensel, she is a young, enthusiastic reporter doing field level reporting. She knows the real situation. So earlier, Limbo asked in his keynote address this very important, pertinent question: do things add up? Looking at our situation, do things add up? Meaning, do they sound right? Is it believable? The drop in ranking?
So, if I share my view on the report, the Bhutan's press freedom decreasing by the Reporters Without Borders. I also can't help but question the reliability of this report because going by the numbers, in 2022, Bhutan was ranked in 33rd place, and just in 4 years, it has drastically decreased to 152nd. So going by the numbers, it seems alarming, but however, I think to conclude that the press freedom of Bhutan that it is in a difficult situation, I think one should really understand the cultural context, the national security reasons or concerns, and the real reality of the media landscape in Bhutan. So now about the report, I think, however, I agree to some of the factors that the report has mentioned, like difficulty in accessing information and also the economic situation of private media houses. And the other thing, I'm so sorry, I'm kind of getting lost, but I think the report mentioned the challenges that the report mentioned, that is reality of the media landscape, but I think it's not that bad being a journalist myself in the field.
So this time RSF focused specifically on economic challenges facing the media, not just in Bhutan, but across the world. They said across the world, economic situation of media is not good. Therefore, that is directly impacting the editorial independence of the media. And that applies to Bhutan as well. And as I said earlier, the quarrel between the private media and Kuensel probably blew that up and exposed everything. So RSF came to know how much our media dependent on government and therefore how much media independence is compromised in the process.
The question will be even better if you ask it next year because this year whatever happens, the ranking will come next year. So our bit of disagreement was this year. So the ranking is for last year, remember? So I think that would be a simple way to answer your question. But just to add to what my colleagues here are saying, I think I do agree that while RSF has pointed out several pertinent issues, economic access to information, like any other report, is not a perfect report. It's not a perfect report because it has its own philosophy, it has its own, like I mentioned, Bhutan never was a favorite child of this report. We started from position rank 157. So in fact, the Bhutanese, we made a mistake. We said this is the lowest ever rank, but I was doing my research and I found lower ranks in the past years, pre-democracy years. So we were never a favorite child of this report, for whatever reasons. We don't want to get into that, you know. So the fact that we're not scoring well in this report does indicate we have to improve, but I think it doesn't also mean RSF is complete. And here we wrote, because the RSF had certain errors, a couple of errors in this report with regard to the private media. So some of us in the private media wrote an email and they made corrections. They made corrections on that, which shows that they also do make mistakes. And the other thing is that the sample size of RSF, because many journalists here, Nishere, Kinzang and others, even during the break, are mentioning we have never seen this report. In the private media, at least this year, none of us got the questionnaires. So I think the sample size is too small. And when you ask RSF what is the sample size, they're not even willing to share the numbers. We said, don't give us the identity, just give us the number of people you've talked to. But they say media professionals, human rights activists. I don't know if Bhutan has a human rights activist, academics and all that. So sample size, absolutely. So I think what we recommended in the email, I wrote to RSF saying next year, please increase the sample size if you want to get a more representative picture. So perhaps then we'll see a better, more, doesn't matter if ranking goes up and down. We cannot hug good rankings and reject bad rankings. We should hug all rankings. We know our own truth, and if we can improve, let's improve.
No media person in Bhutan receives RFS's survey questionnaire. In my 20 years of service in the media, I haven't received one. Have you received any, Lansang, in the past?
So in the past, I did receive a couple of times.
Okay, good.
And I've filled up, but when the rankings really smashed down, I was busy with the election coverage, and unfortunately, sometimes I blame myself for the rankings because I thought if I gave a balanced perspective, maybe it wouldn't have dropped that much. And then we don't know, because when they say human rights activists, is the ranking going outside Bhutan also? Because certain topics are mentioned in that. So it's very difficult. And then I asked RSF also, are you taking the economist intelligence unit? Then there's a human rights watch. They keep releasing press releases against Bhutan. So does the RSF look at it? But they claim they don't. It doesn't influence the ranking. But I really don't know.
The journalists in the hall, let's do a quick survey. Have you received the questionnaire from RSF? Only few, only two, three. Most of us didn't receive, right? That's not really representative. Yes, Ulbejo?
So it's my 23rd year with Kuensel, and I had not received the questionnaire also. But I think what we have to keep in mind is that the ranking globally has gone down. It dropped nose that in fact. And I think this is a reflection of the media landscape, the changing media landscape, and especially because they brought the economic indicator in. And we know that globally, traditional media is not doing well, from the US to Bhutan to anywhere in the world. I think sustainability and starting from the big papers to small papers like Kuensel, we are fighting to sustain and survive. So maybe this could be one reason. And I have not seen the question, so maybe next time we should request the reporters with the borders to send the questions to the editor. So maybe you could give a better perspective, a balanced approach to the responses.
Whether their report is authentic, whether they've circulated the questionnaire among Bhutanese media personnel. Their reports do affect our image, international image, perception of Bhutanese media. I think perception is often as important as the reality. Therefore, how do you respond to that, Director Sir? I know your mood is not really good.
Assuming that behind the third row are all journalists, and assuming that there are about 60 of them, and 3 just raised hands, the sample size is not representative. So scientifically, it is not acceptable. Irrespective of the questions, irrespective of the situation, the sample size is not representative of the journalist fraternity. So it's very nice that it has been pointed out. We first need to know whether the sample size is representative. Because if we have to take the ranking seriously, which I really want to take, the sample size does not allow me to take it seriously. So allow us to take it seriously by doing a better survey. So if RSF is watching us, this is our request. Do your survey well. We want to take your advice sincerely. We want to implement it. We are already trying. We are already trying on enhancing information sharing between government and the journalists. We want to enhance dissemination of information at my level, at my secretary's level, at my minister's level, at all levels. And Dr. Kezang is also here. There's a lot of initiatives being taken by the parliament also. So we want to take it seriously, just improve the sample size and maybe perhaps a little transparency. And like CEO Kuensel was sharing, in the last 22 years or so, he never got those questions, so he's not even aware of what is there. Oh, we would love to see too. Let us give a proper representation. It's not that the ranking should improve, but we should understand the situation in a much better way, holistic way, so that we can respond to it and the situation improves in the truest sense. That's it. Thank you.
Our press freedom ranking falling every year. So we are facing the brunt of the report every year. And when we dropped so many places last year, in a conference like this, Honorable Prime Minister said, let's work together to tackle this. Next year we'll try to improve our ranking. But the media fraternity was not able to come together to make a coordinated, concerted effort to do that. How do we work together to improve our press freedom ranking?
Like earlier speaker mentioned, like inclusion of social and one is legislative. So I feel like on the other hand, it's a current way to do things where government and the concerned ministry should rethink and revisit that. Because in Bhutan, like media, they mostly depend, financial and economic depend on government. So government, when they depend on government, and when government cannot afford to support, the one thing could be the reason why the ranking has gone down. On the other hand, we don't have such like in the media legal and regulatory framework, so which means there's no protection. So that too, the concerned ministry or the government should think and they need to provide timely support. Then other thing, like most speaker mentioned, like access to information. This has been going long, not a new thing. It's a new, nothing new issue. So how many people like earlier, like SCAC, Social and Cultural Affairs Committee, that are led by Dr. Kezang here, National Council, they have done 1 year thorough review research, and they have submitted a lot of recommendations to government, concerned ministries, and the responses for those recommendations are with respect to committee, so we will be submitting this upcoming session. So where they are consulted, RSF did consult with the committee or the parliamentarians. So this all we need to question ourselves. Thank you.
Access to information is a challenge. How do you improve that?
Being a journalist, the most challenging thing is the work of journalists itself is very challenging. We all know that, but it is also rewarding. So the main challenge that we face is access to information, because we have to meet the deadline, and once the information that we get is delayed, the news becomes stale, and it doesn't work that way in the newsroom. So that's more challenging. So I think the way forward is can be if civil servants are allowed to directly speak to media themselves, because they have that fear that whenever we approach a civil servant asking for information about the work that they do, they always say that they're not allowed to speak to media directly. So it would be really helpful if government can do away with that rule and let civil servants directly speak to us, because now, if I touch upon self-censorship, we all know that we are a responsible citizen also. So being a journalist, we know what's sensitive and what's not, what can affect our national security or anything. So I think we know how to filter out information, and sometimes we feel like civil servants, they don't want to share information, not because of the rule, but they're somewhat lazy to do their work. Because whenever we approach our sources and ask for information, what they always say is, we can't speak to media directly. You have to come through the PPD and speak with media focal, and then he or she will then only reach out to the sources. So that's what we get. But we really feel like sometimes when we ask for small information that we need, and giving us that reason, it makes them seem like they're not doing their job efficiently. So I think doing away with that rule will help us journalists to report.
Yes. And this issue concerns Director Sir. Are you happy with this?
Well, a lot of faces I see here are they most welcome to my office. I talk to them freely, and I have no inhibitions in talking to people about my work. You must not have met me, so you are generalizing me in the basic bracket. Please bless me and a few colleagues here from the bracket. So that way, I do know a lot of people who cannot be conveniently categorized under the lazy bracket. But I think what you're saying is true. But at the same time, as a civil servant, now I'm not going to talk as a director for the Department of Media, but as a civil servant, there are certain protocols that we need to follow. That you would have appreciated if you were wearing our shoes, because there are certain protocols we'll have to follow. It's not about self-censorship. At the same time, I have a lot of media friends here, journalist friends here, who when they come to me, I often tell them, so that way, it's on the other side too. So often please clap like that. Please clap.
Understandable.
Yeah.
As civil servants, they have protocols to follow.
I do tell them. There are many incidences, but I also believe in the principle about free and responsible. I'll put the word responsible flow of information. We believe in that, and when I say responsible, there's a certain protocol that we have to follow, and therefore efforts are being made to commonly understand the SOP that we have on information sharing.
Okay, you have protocols to follow, but if your protocols are not serving the media well, are you willing to make adjustments? Anyway, Lamasan is going to say something.
Let's forget about the RSF report. Let's imagine there's no RSF report and look at issues in the Bhutanese media. Without the RSF report also, there are definitely major issues, multi-dimensional problems. A few years ago, a friend of mine was saying that this hall would have been full and that hall would have been full also now. Here, the hall is barely full and half the people here are not journalists. Our guests, of course, our friends, well-wishers, but half the people here, this is how much journalism has decreased in Bhutan. And let's face reality. This is what the real picture is. And if you look back, I think the problem I keep pointing this out in my editorials and articles, the problem all started in 2010, when the first, second, third, fourth governments carried out a series of austerity measures, huge major cuts in advertisements which hit everybody. And I think from there, that is the source of all our problems, whether it be quality of journalism or professionalism or attrition rate, it all stems from there. So if you don't address the issue of sustainability, and I think also the government approach has to be, the government has to first acknowledge we have a problem to solve the problem. If you don't acknowledge you have a problem, you cannot move forward. So I think we have to acknowledge we have a major problem. Let's forget about the RSF, forget about rankings. We have a major problem on our hands. Look at this hall. This is the reality of journalism in Bhutan. So many of me and my colleagues are not working in journalism anymore. Why? You ask them, they'll give you the real answers.
Yes.
So I think we have to solve this, and I think sustainability and access to information, I'll quickly wrap up you. Access to information, I think, is a major issue, especially for younger journalists. Because now the senior ones have moved out, their contacts are not there. A lot of young faces are in here, and it's a double whammy for them. Because they are new, and number two, people are not talking, officials are not talking. There is a atmosphere of fear in the government, in the civil service. I don't know why, but there's an absolute atmosphere of fear, and they are not willing to talk. It's not about SOP. We appreciate the Vijay Lempo's efforts, Moi's efforts, and Mois is trying. But there's an absolute fear. So until we can get rid of that fear, access to information, SOP captures will be useless.
Yes,
We have
thank
to
you.
address this really.
Thank you.